Right. So, welcome everyone. Like I was saying, it has been especially difficult for me to introduce our guest for today because there is no one thing that defines Sushreeta. She has been a practicing psychologist for about 5 years now, and there is so much more to her than being a psychologist. She's also a writer, she's a dancer, she's a singer, and an artist. Some of you may know that she's authored two books, a series of super fortunate chances, and of love and other things. Uh, and also, as you can see in the background, Sushita has also created some art. Um, and Sushita not only uses art in her personal life, but also in her professional life. She uses art to help clients express themselves in therapy. Along with this, Sushita also has her own YouTube channel and her Instagram page where she promotes mental health, art, and writing. So, really glad to have you join us here today, Sushita. Welcome to the Community Talk.
Thank you so much.
So, let's just dive right in.
Sure,
Uh,
absolutely.
Yeah, I would like to begin with talking about your formative years and what was it like growing up. What drew you towards art and psychology growing up?
Psychology came into my life much later, but art was always there since I was a small little babe. My childhood has been greatly in Chembur. My father used to work for Reserve Bank of India, so we used to stay in the staff quarters. Now, what happened was my mom decided to dedicate one entire wall for me and my shenanigans. So I have literally used crayons and whatnot on that wall, and I have created my own art on those walls. Like, if I were to go and look back at the pictures of that wall, I just look at myself and like, oh, those were just like the beginnings. Those were just the beginnings. So I'm really thankful that my mother actually gave me that entire wall to just, scribble away. I think she probably realized the importance of uh, creativity and fine motor skill development way before even I could technically coin those terms, and not coin, but technically use those terms for those specific purposes.
Yeah, so you were already used to being curious and just going out on your own and exploring things with art, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I made this,
Oh wow,
and I made this,
wow, this is beautiful.
and uh, this is Koito Sabun Kadapa. This is a soap box, and this we had like cardboard lying about. So my dad actually helped me with both of these because he's good at getting dimensions in place. So I did the whole best out of waste sort of thing, and that's actually helped because apart from indulging in my art, I am kind of sort of trying to do a best out of waste also. So yeah, I've done these. So
This is
that's the
beautiful.
translation of all the scribbles coming out to something really, really beautiful.
Yeah, this is so beautiful to see. In fact, I think this is part of the fluid art that you have been doing.
Yeah,
Uh, right. So, would you like to talk a bit more about, the fluid art? And I also know that
uh-huh.
you've also been doing coffee art and just the variety of art that you've been using
Yeah.
at the moment.
So I have been doing coffee painting. I have been doing fluid art since quite some time now. Actually, my interest in fluid art started, and coffee painting started after the pandemic started. But before the pandemic started, I was always interested in fluid art. I formally attended a fluid art session once in Feb 2020, and that's what got me going. So the heart that you can see over here, that was technically my first formal fluid art project, and then everything else around it just kept happening. So what I realized while doing fluid art myself is that you don't have to be an artist to be able to do fluid art. Anybody can do it. And I have observed that there is a whole lot of stuff that goes on in your mind as you are doing the stars connectivity, because it literally involves a great deal of fluidity, and that fluidity translates into some of the other patterns. So this kind of sort of reminds me of projective tests in psychology, like a Rorschach or something like that. But however, obviously, I do not interpret from fluid art paintings, but I use it for my clients to find a way to channelize their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, their the processes, whatever is going on in their mind. Fluid art helps channelize that in a particular direction. I try to make sure that there is enough of a safe space and an environment, because I have seen clients actually get lost in the process and there's so much non-verbal happening. I need to make them feel safe, that your non-verbals are absolutely safe with me. You do not have anything to worry about at all. And all of this I have been doing online. And it has been one hell of an experience. So, like, I live to see the change in the facial expressions of my clients when they are doing fluid art. Coffee painting, on the other hand, gives a very multi-sensory experience, because you get to touch the coffee, you get to smell the coffee, you get to see the coffee, and you get to see what is the outcome that that coffee painting is giving to you. So that's relatively more structured than fluid art. Coffee painting, I usually use it as a relaxation tool, wherein you don't have any other colors. You just have your coffee, your water, your paintbrush, and the paper on which you're going to do whatever you want. There is no limit to your ability to be able to use those few mediums in whatever way you want. So it's very relaxing. It is very freeing also. So with fluid art, if I'm channelizing, if I'm helping my clients channelize, also relax. Uh, at the same time, I'm using coffee painting as a medium of just free expression. Actually, the both of them are quite interrelated. However, it's the sensory processes that differ. With the coffee painting setup, you'll be extremely tactile, and you will have different textures. You'll have different mediums, because there is sight, there is there is touch, there is smell, and because of the smell of coffee, the need to want to taste some coffee, sometimes that also happens. I have stupidly taken coffee powder and directly put it in my mouth. Yeah, done that also.
So, but this makes me wonder that, how do you go about deciding that this is what I'm going to do with the client today, or this is the art that I want to do with them?
Yeah.
Like you said, coffee art is quite
Yeah,
structured in that
yeah,
sense as
yeah,
compared to fluid art.
yeah.
So, how do you go about making that decision?
So the beautiful part is I allow my clients to make those decisions. I explain to them what fluid art is, what coffee painting is, and what are the characteristic differences in the two. I allow my clients to gravitate and choose whichever of the two mediums they would want to engage in, because I personally have this understanding that when my client is given that freedom and autonomy to choose how they would like to engage themselves, they are able to make um, a very interesting decision for themselves. And it's actually so nice to see how they come to the decision of, okay, I want to do this. I have a few clients who are like teenagers, like 15, 16, 17. They get super excited. Oh, fluid art, today we're going to do fluid art. I usually, so for these age groups, these teenagers, when I see that they are very overwhelmed, they're very tired, they're very exhausted, and they really want to relax, I'll be like, okay, let's do one session in which you'll do some sort of art. We'll just do some art. I'm not going to ask you any questions. We are not going to talk about any problems that are going on in your life or anything. We're just going to do art. And then in the session, they actually find themselves so strongly. They thoroughly enjoy it, and at the end of the session, they're like, अच्छा लग रहा है मुझे. And they will literally, so these are young girls and boys, right? So the girls especially, they will be so excited. They'll be like, मैंने आज ये fluid art painting किया, आपको दिखाऊं? And they'll actually show it to me. So that helps me understand how much of joy and happiness that sparks in them, how much of a relaxed environment doing that particular task creates for them. Now again, having said that, it's not necessarily that I'll do it for all of my clients. Only when I introduce the possibility to my clients, okay, listen, this is something that I do as well, would you like to explore it with me? They give me permission, and only then I go forward. If they're not up for it, fine, we'll do something else, totally cool. It's all you.
Right. So I guess the theme seems to be that it's all you. The clients get to choose. And also, you said something very interesting, Sushrita, about that while they're doing art, they find themselves. So and also with therapy, I think a lot of it has got to do with just bringing awareness. So I want to touch a bit upon how art and therapy come together in your sessions, and how you bring psychology and art in that sense together. And
The beautiful thing is, client ko pata hi nahi chalta. That's the beautiful thing, because me being the professional, I know all the jargon, I know all the theories, I know all the backstory as to how did all of this come into the picture. And I myself, sometimes when I'm in sessions, I decide that no, I don't need this right now. I will push all of that behind, and I will be in the moment as the client. So I am not just directing the client to do it, I'm doing the same process with the client. So if you may have heard of the technique mirroring, wherein two people are in front of each other and you end up mirroring each other's movements. So I take off a little bit from that, little bit, not entirely, because in fluid art it's very it'll be too hectic of a task if you're actually trying to mirror each other. But so sometimes what happens is there's a sort of hesitation and a sort of restriction. So when I am also demonstrating, the client also feels comfortable, and then they are also able to understand the process because they see I am doing it as well. So one more thing about the use of art in therapy, at least for me, is that it breaks down so many barriers that are there between me and the client, because it becomes this absolutely informal thing. The client is perceiving this as, oh, I don't have to talk about my problems, I don't have to do anything, I can just do this. And I have also observed, so there was a time when I used to work with the college, and I had mandala printouts and I had crayons handy. One of the students would pop in, talk a bit, and they'd be like, okay, so kuch khas nahi hai bolne ke liye. So I would just give them that mandala ka sheet. I would give them like a bunch of crayons, and I would just I'm pretending to like do my thing. Then they're like, slowly opening up, ma'am, you know what, this happened and then that happened, and it's effortless. So whenever I've introduced art in therapy, I have seen that a lot of the processes become so effortless for the client, and I love that it is so, like, my clients are able to see it as so effortless. So it is any which ways exhausting that you have to day in and day out put in a lot of effort in just being you. It seems as if you have to put a lot of effort in just being you. So when they actually see that they can be themselves this effortlessly, that entire pressure, that entire psychosomatic stress also slowly starts wearing down. I can literally see it melt in front of my own eyes when I look at my clients. So yeah, that's how much of an integration I have with therapy and usage of art.
right. This is absolutely lovely. Just I'm also, I think, like starting to crave for coffee now and wanting to do art. Absolutely lovely. So like you said that so it sounds like when there is a lot of the person is exhausted and there's a lot of perturbation, maybe there's lot of distress that they're not able to talk about, art can be a beautiful way of just letting them ease into the process. uh, so in terms of maybe like long term goals, when you're working with the client towards something, how are you able to, so I mean, like, do you use art in every session, or how do you mix the two in that sense, especially working on long term goals?
Right. So, how do I explain this? So when I use art in therapy with my clients, it somehow has nothing to do with the goals. It has nothing to do with any pointedness or directedness towards, okay, this is what needs to be done. Sometimes, so this tool basically kind of sort of, I use it as an icebreaker. I use it as a pause moment also, wherein you just want to forget about everything else and just pause, be in the here and now completely, especially when I see there is a lot of confusion, there's a lot of chaos going in the client's mind. I help them pause by doing this sort of an intervention. Obviously, I do not use it with every client. It depends upon where the client is leaning, what is the client's creative bend or not, and on that basis, I design therapy. However, my usage of art in therapy is majorly to help the client be enhance the non-verbal expressions as well, because what they say is fine, but what they're not saying, I want to hear it loud and clear. So you say it best when you say nothing at all. I totally see that when I have sessions with my clients. So there have been so many times that I am so thankful that I was able to learn so much about nonverbal behavior in the amount of internships or in just observing people. So from a very young age, I've always observed people, and I have learned so much about their nonverbals. So there used to be a time wherein if I'm sitting someplace, I'm just randomly looking at people, I would look at a person and I would try to create a story in my mind that, oh, what's probably going on with this person, or what is the next event that's going to occur with this person. And then the event would play out, and then I'd be like, oh, okay. So like a whole lot of non-verbal has helped me understand what a person is feeling a whole lot better. So that's like, that's where art really 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 helps me to elicit more of the non-verbal. I know they're saying things, I know what they're saying, where it's coming from and all of that, but sometimes I just I want your expressions to speak loud. I want you to be able to express without having to say a word.
Oh, it just sounds like how important non-verbal cues can be. And I
Very.
mean, I never thought of non-verbal cue in itself, in that sense. That there is so much that you can express just through
Non-verbal.
painting and other things.
True, true, very true.
So we talked about, we touched a bit upon how art has been a major influence, was just a part of your life, growing up.
Yeah.
So where did the curiosity towards people develop? Because I heard you mention that you would see people and wonder what's going on and what their story may be. So what is the role of psychology in your life?
Huh. So, as far as my memory serves me, from a very young age, I've always loved helping people. When I say helping people, it doesn't mean like, अच्छा ठीक है uncle auntie आपकी सब्जी उठा लेती हूँ, थैली उठा लेती हूँ, I'll keep this here for you, keep that here for you. No, that way I was like, अच्छा, you expect me to do that for you, but you can do it yourself. No? Obviously, not saying all of this out loud, but whenever people would come across some or the other problems, it could be like a basic, simple problem of I don't have this paper now. What do I do? So I don't know. I was, if you could say it in present times, I was kind of sort of like a person who was very engaged in problem solving and emotional literacy. So these two things from a very young age I've had, and I have helped people around a lot of that. And the funniest part is, as a kid, I've gotten to umpteen number of fights with my friends, close friends, and I've had umpteen sessions of crying just because I have to move away from my friend. Now we'll not see each other for 24 hours. Okay. So having been through those experiences has really enhanced my ability to see things beyond what it actually is. So even if I would, my friends and I would end up fighting, we would make sure we make up before we actually begin doing anything else. We meet the next day, we make sure we have made up. And I was usually the one who would come, bearing the white flag of peace. And I'd be like, hey, listen, this is what happened. It's in the past now. I really appreciate you for who you are as a person, and you're my friend. So I can't stay mad at you for too long because I know why you are my friend. I like you, therefore you're my friend. There are things about you which I really appreciate. That's why you're my friend. Now, obviously, I'm able to say this now because I have a better understanding of things. But those days, very juvenile. But we used to actually make sure that if we've had fights, we are going to make up for sure. Maybe I'll just call you up at night and I'll be like, hey, listen, झगड़ा क्यों किया ये वो, and we'll just sort it out and be like, हाँ चलो सो जाते हैं, something of the sort. So I have been like that since a very young age, and from a very young age I have had, in a very indirect way, had responsibilities. I don't have siblings, I don't have anything of the sort. I am a crash baby. So when I was younger, my parents were both working, so they had to leave me someplace where I could be taken care of, and so that they could get back to work. So there was a daycare center in TIS, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I was kept up there, and when you are the baby, it's different. Then you grow up, slowly you have to become a little more responsible, and I was like that good girl. So I kind of sort of picked up the responsibility of the younger ones. So we had teachers, we had aunties who would take care of us, but I don't know, that environment also kind of sort of made me realize that, oh, you're gonna have to be responsible for the younger ones around you because they are not capable of understanding a whole bunch of things. So you've got to be there for them. And so from that young age, I realized that, okay, this is something. But I never knew about psychology until I reached college. 11th, 12th, so after my 10th, I was speculating, kya karu. The vice principal of my school was like, listen, I know you don't want to take science, but don't jump into arts directly because 11th, 12th में अगर तुमने arts किया और तुमको फिर arts नहीं करना है आगे जाके, you won't get an option to switch. If you take commerce now, you will still get an option to switch later on to arts. I was like, okay, yeah, 2 साल commerce. And like मजा नहीं आ रहा, मतलब it's not that I can't do commerce, I can do, but मजा नहीं आ रहा, it doesn't feel like me. Daily arts, oh god, arts admissions, hilarious. So I went to SIS College, Science, Old, and filled my application. Instead of psychology, I ticked on political science. Me and my dad left. Then I was panicking. I was like, shit, psychology pick nahi kiya maine. I don't know why I panicked thinking psychology pick nahi kiya, because I didn't really have like 100% of an idea about the subject. Jitna bhi logo se pooch ke samajh mein aaya, it seemed like an interesting subject. I panicked. Shit, psychology nahi liya. I ran back to SIS and I requested the admissions person, like, please give me my form. I need to change. मैंने गलत subject pick किया. Fortunately, सब हो गया. I got my admission form. I was able to change the subject combination and I gave it back. Done. It's not that I hadn't applied in other colleges. I had applied in other colleges, but back in the day, you had like set combinations that you could pick from. So I think SIS was my best bet. It gave me whatever I wanted. So I had taken up English literature, philosophy, and psychology. After the entire fiasco, I got in. I got through.
So
and that is how psychology became a part of my life. And I understood it only in the first year of college because I was doing well in all other subjects. Psychology mein, I was just like, yaar, marks kahan ja rahe hain? Where are my marks going? And it was just such a very, like, I was like, okay, I like this subject, I'm not performing in this subject, what the absolute heck is going on here? But then come second year, something happened. I realized, TY mein seat sirf 25 hai. You need to get good marks to get into one of those 25 seats. Usme bhi reserved hai some for in-house or baki open for outsiders. I was like, nahi, ab to kuch to karna hi padega yaar. because I realized that psychology is practically what I have been doing my entire life. I was like, nahi, psycho chahiye. People, oh Sushreeta, you're doing so great in English literature. Why don't you take English literature? I'm like, I know I'm doing really well in lit. I know I have topped English lit as well. I know all of that. But psychology. So, you guys, good luck. I'm going to try my luck here and I'm going to make sure I get into psych. I don't know what got into me. I managed to study. I didn't even study crazy, okay? I studied. जैसे मैं normally पढ़ती, I studied. I understood the concepts and everything. सब कुछ किया. Notes बनाए, सब कुछ किया. Top 4 in my class, top 8 in the entire batch. I was like, huh? How did this happen? Because topping anywhere was never like my aim or my goal that I have to top or something. I was just like, I need to get enough marks so that I can get a seat in psychology bus. मेरे को चाहिए. I was like, okay, ठीक है, fine. टॉप किया, फिर भी यकीन नहीं हो रहा है. I came in the top 4, top 8. फिर भी यकीन नहीं हो रहा है कि साइकोलॉजी में सीट मिलेगी. एडमिशंस के दिन गए, डिमांड ड्राफ्ट वगैरह एवरीथिंग सब कुछ रेडी करके रखा हुआ था. गए, एचओडी साइकोलॉजी की उनके हाथ में दे दिया एडमिशन फॉर्म, टिक, साइन, ओके गो फिल योर फॉर्म एट द कॉलेज ऑफिस. मैम, I got admission. Yeah, look at your marks. You performed so well. Obviously, you will get admission. Go. I was like, what? Did I? Is this for real? Is this really happening with me? Did I really get admission? I went to the office. They took my fees here. I was like, shit, it's real. It's actually happening. And then afterwards, I saw because everybody else was struggling because they'd not gotten the marks that were required in the first place. So everybody was running helter-skelter. Fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know. They got seats because the seats were not getting full, and there was enough. There were still seats available to accommodate all those who were interested in psychology. So yeah, that's how psychology happened to me. It happened to me, okay? Even though I was always this person who would be there, listen, empathize, unconditional positive regard, you name it. I never realized that I was actually doing all of that all this while. Without being judgmental, without being biased. And I was so shook when I realized, अच्छा ये सारे skills है, मतलब तभी से बन जाना चाहिए था psychologist, but नहीं, degree चाहिए हाथ में, otherwise it makes no sense. You can't really practice without actually knowing the depth of the subject. Otherwise, it's like you're just scamming people. So yeah, that's how psychology came to me. It happened to me.
Right. So I mean, it sounds like you did put in a lot of effort to get the subject of your choice, but just getting into, so you've completed your bachelor's and psychology, like you say, has happened to you, but now you're getting into master's knowing that this is the subject that you want to pursue.
Yeah.
So what was master's like? I know that you've also done lots of internships during that period at different hospitals as well. So how was your experience of master's?
So see, bachelor's खत्म करने के बाद पता था कि झकमा के master's करना ही पड़ेगा, otherwise you will not be called a psychologist. And I was like, fair enough, let's do this, करते हैं. But हुआ क्या था? I was so exhausted with my bachelor's because final year BA was so hectic. Wake up in the morning, leave for college, sit in the psychology lab, attend your lectures. Nobody on campus knows whether you exist, whether you're dead or alive when you're inside of that room. You finish your lectures, you go home, you complete your assignments, fill up your notes, read, study, and then come back the next day. Maybe not doing it every day, or by the time you're home, you're just like, no, done, I'm tired, I don't want to do anything else, sort of situation. But that was literally a very funny story for almost everybody back in the batch. Like all colleges jahan pe bhi psychology was being offered as TY ka majors ka subject, sab jagah yahi haal tha. Psychology students people were perceiving us as some elite group or something, and we are like, you just come once inside and sit in our psychology lectures and then think of calling us elite. You just see what happens in our lectures. People are like, chodo, you do your world, whatever it is. So that was 1 year where everybody was just like, what is wrong with you? Where are you? Do you even exist? Do you know what life is beyond this? I'm like, yes, we shall talk about it. We shall get there. So it was so exhausting that a break sounded like a good idea. So in that break, what did I do is, I through a family friend, I got an opportunity of an internship at the Center for CSOL. Shit, I forgot the full form of the department of this. Center for Social and Organizational Learning, CSOL. So I got an internship with the chairperson of that department for like a solid 3 months. I did a whole bunch of things. There was something known as the Innovation Forum that would happen annually. I helped with that. I was supposed to create a curriculum on psychometric testing. A freshly graduated bachelor's just for psychometric testing का basics ही मालूम है. MMPI, MCMI, Rorschach, aptitude वगैरह. I have no idea because that's what's there for masters. At your bachelor's level, you just have like an overview of all of these things. And I was like, okay, I have to create a course. I have to sit down, break my head, and create a course for psychometric testing for management professionals. In my head, I'm like, why do I have to do that? They have nothing to do directly with psychology. Why are you asking me to do this? Psychometric testing, why? And I was like, okay, fine. Let's just focus on psychometric tests, which could perhaps be used by management professionals, like an MBTI or something of the sort. So then I started developing that. But obviously, who the hell is ever satisfied with whatever you have created? He was never satisfied. I was like, chodo. Then he gave me the Innovation Forum ka kaam. I did that very well. I invited a whole bunch of people to come attend it. That was a great success. It went down very well. Then afterwards, I was like, maaf karo. 3 महीने बहुत काम किया आपके लिए, अब मुझे जाने दो. Because I was thinking of, further आगे करना क्या है, masters का कैसे plan करना है. So the original plan was actually to go overseas for my masters. It happened also almost. I went to the US to why am I forgetting my school's name? New School for Social Research in New York, Manhattan. I went there. Turns out it was night school. So that was like a big dilemma because traveling at night after 11:30, not really the best thing to do when you're traveling from Manhattan to Jersey. So that was a little bit. Then when I went there and when I saw the students who were in my batch, I realized that they really want to have like a very inclusive, a very multicultural batch. I was the only Indian.
You were talking about your school in New York and
yeah. So then I saw that I was the only Indian in that batch, and I was one among 2 Asians, and they were really trying very hard to make sure that it's a very multiculturally diverse thing. But we decided to come back because night school, it made no sense, and for the first 6 months you can't really work because only after 6 months will you be allowed an opportunity to work anywhere on campus, and then only after a year can you work off campus. So all of those visa rules. So I would have just what do I do the whole day? So anyway, even though I am sure New School would have been an amazing sometimes it's okay. Where did you hear me last? I feel that my connection got lost for a second.
Yeah,
it's happening too frequently, right? Just give me a moment. I'm just
okay.
I'm just going to
Okay, so let's do one thing. We can take a
Yeah.
5 minute break.
All right.
And you can also look at your internet, and we can give everybody a 5 minute break as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we can meet at 8:50. So New York.
So yeah, that happened. It was just like, I know it would have been a great experience, but however, I was like, it's okay. If it didn't happen, it's fine. You know that you want to do something, you will do it anyway. So fortunately, while we were coming back, there was a college in Mumbai which had just started offering a master's in psychology, and it was in Chembur, Vivekanand College, and my dad, poor thing, we're calling him like, listen, my mark sheets are here, this is there, that is there, the copies of everything are there, originals are with me, the copies are there. Just go tell them, take my copies, I have good marks, I deserve this admission. And the HOD was so sweet, and she and I are in touch even up to date. So she's a very amazing human being. She keeps sharing a whole bunch of resources also on a regular basis, so that's like absolutely amazing. So my father went to her, said that this is the situation, she's going to be coming back from the US, and ma'am was like, yeah, okay, fine, no worries, her seat will be she'll be given provisional admission. And I reached home, US से वापस लौटे, and took a breather, and the very next day, I believe, or the day after that, we went. I sat for one lecture, मुश्किल से. जैसे the lecture got done, I came out, and I was like, okay, I'm attending college tomorrow. And then that's where my master's journey started, and we had two options between industrial psychology and clinical psychology. Again, choose. What do you want to do? Which do you want to pick? I was so confused. I was like, industrial, clinical, industrial, clinical. What do I do? What do I do? But then I was like, chalo clinical kar lete hain. Let's just do clinical, because I was under the understanding that clinical is the baap of all subjects in psychology. I was like, chalo theek hai, kar lete hain. So then I chose to do clinical, and oh my god, my master's was such a beautiful experience. So MA1, the first year, we were all together. The entire, like, 30 of us were together, and we've had such interesting faculties, and we've had such interesting conversations with the faculties. We have literally been in college till 8 p.m. Classrooms are locked. We are still in college. We are either sitting on the floor of the corridor, या तो हका दिया हमको बाहर college से. So we're sitting on the katta and we're having our conversations and everything. And parents are like, where the heck are you guys? मतलब ये अभी तक, and then when they know that like हम अभी भी college में, like what? What is going on with you people? You're still in college? But yeah, those were quite a few days wherein we would stay back late in college. We would have conversations with professors. We would be finishing certain assignments, taking some notes, doing a whole bunch of things. So MA Part 1 was super memorable in that sense. Then came MA Part 2. A lot of challenges for clinical people. Not getting the right kind of faculties to teach you certain subjects. It was such a task to get the right faculty to teach you, because most of them were practicing, and it was very difficult for them to find time to sit and give us lectures. And hum se kuch log very smart people, because they're like, no, we want quality, we will demand quality. And so we actually had a change of teachers, because we were not satisfied by the way they were teaching us. Went through all of those changes, and clinical kar liya kaise to. Internships also, we had to fight so much. We weren't getting a whole bunch of internships, but we landed with Masina Hospital and Thane Mental Hospital, and the experiences there were OMG. Got to understand and learn so many things of how not to be a psychologist. What kind of a psychologist are you not supposed to be? These are the things that you'd rather not do.
Please tell us some of those things.
I don't even know where to begin. Because see, it's not that those two places are essentially horrible places or something, but we obviously went into the place from a learning perspective. Like, at least I can speak for myself. I went in there to learn what does it actually mean to be a psychologist. So sitting in on a whole lot of test administrations, sitting in, we didn't really get to sit in on therapy sessions back then. We only sat in on a lot of testing. Then we did testing and therapy on our own with all of the patients over there. So, empathy is going to take you a long way forward, because the staff do not necessarily understand how to deal with people who are different in any sense. So they, so to speak, basic bedside manners are also something that the staff would lack. And that's so sad when you know you are catering to a certain population which requires a certain way of being spoken to and you're not able to. I was like, okay, empathy, point number one, gold capital highlight, do everything that you possibly can. That is going to be at the top of your list. करना है तो empathy से ही operate करना है. Second, make sure that before you're administering any test, your patient, your client is oriented. If they are not oriented, if they are in a state of disorientation, try to understand why are they in a state of disorientation. Are they on certain medicines that cause them to be a little disoriented, feel sleepy, feel lethargic, or did they just receive ECTs? Because when you've received an ECT, it is very likely that you're not present. You need some time, because during ECTs they give you an anesthetic. Anesthesia is given, so the orientation is obviously going to be thoda sa distorted. It'll take time for the effect of the anesthesia to wear off. And plus, electroconvulsive therapy mein there are certain brain parts that have been stimulated by sending certain minimal voltages of electricity, right? So obviously there has been excuse me. So obviously there has been some sort of manipulation, some sort of change that has occurred in the brain. So the test results are not going to end up being 100% valid. The validity factor comes into question. So that is one more factor that you have to, think about, focus on. One very interesting thing that we are all always told during our internships is that wear your white lab coats, make sure it's buttoned up all the way. Make sure your hair is tied up in a particular way. Make sure it's not open. You can't leave your hair open. You have to keep your hair tied up when you're going into the wards to see your patients. One of the reasons why that was told to us was probably because of the different presentations of psychosis or bipolar disorder, or because majorly what we saw different forms of psychosis. We saw bipolar disorder, we saw a combination of anxiety and depression, we saw underlying personality characteristics, personality issues, we saw a whole lot of addiction also. Sab mila ke dekha hai. So one of the major reasons for them to be saying all of this to us was that looking at you, what if something triggers the patient in a different way? One experience that I would like to share with all of you over here is that back in the day, I would not do my upper lips. Okay, I would just bleach and I wouldn't do my upper lips. So what happened was, so we were sent in pairs for our work, for our internships. So whenever we would go in the hospital, we would be sent in pairs. So my friend with me, she was like, before only, from much before, she was like, "Tu upper lips ka threading kyun nahi kara leti? You look nice." I was like, "Dekhte hain." I am sitting with this one patient of mine. So she and I were both sitting with this patient. This patient apparently was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and she was presenting to be in the manic phase. All right. Apparently, as per what this particular client said, they had experienced in the beauty sector. So beauty parlor में काम किया है types. She saw me and she's like, आप अपना upper lips नहीं करते, मैं करके दूँ क्या आपको? Something along these lines. And I was like, what? No, I'm not letting you touch me or my upper lips. I don't know you're in an active manic phase. I don't know what you'll do to me. And those were the times when we were learning testing and assessment. We were not learning therapy still. Next, I go home the very next day. I get rid of my upper lip. Such a painful experience, I tell you. Ab to aadat ho gayi, that's a different thing. But I was just like, too much pain. And then the next time when my patient saw me, my patient was so happy. So happy that I got to understand so much of her manic phase. So much. And she was, even though she was in the manic phase, I could actually see her move up and down, from her highs to her lows, again to her highs to her lows. I was like, what is this? Then I was able to go back home, recall all of the things that I encountered with this particular patient. And as I was reading through the diagnostic criteria, and I was reading through the synopsis of psychiatry, wherein you are explained about the origin to the present of disorders, I was like, oh, acha, aisa kya? Oh, pro tip. ये जो भी तुम सीखते हो in psychology when you are attending lectures, master's level पे or bachelor's level पे, at least back in the time when I was doing that, देसी references नहीं थे. You barely had any Indian references, all right? So make the most of your internship opportunities. Make mistakes over there, that's absolutely fine. Because once you make a mistake, you will realize how to correct it. Because there is no cultural context that you necessarily get to learn. Sure, there's multiculturalism as a subject is there, which is a great subject. It's an absolutely beautiful subject. But nobody teaches you how to integrate multiculturalism in therapy. It's something that you learn as you practice. So utilize your internship opportunities to do a whole lot of that. Trust me, that will help you so much, because being an Indian psychologist, practicing with the Indian population, sitting in every part of the world, I have realized that there's a great deal of multiculturalism that needs to be used time and again in therapy. Because as much as we like to say that, you've got to look within, you've got to do things, it's all about you, yourself, your perspectives, your point of views and things like that. We have this whole thing that we need to control everything. Sometimes we forget that where we come from is beyond our control. Our environments, our situations and our circumstances are beyond our control, and therefore for me as a therapist, it becomes even more important to understand, realize, accept and interpret those extraneous variables as well. So yeah, practice. Get into practice. You will have the most amazing time of your life, but make sure you're supervised, at least for the initial few years. Make sure you are working in such a setup where you have supervision by default. You don't have to pay for it. It is by default as a part of the job that you're doing. So that is a very, very, very important thing that I learned in my entire process. So yeah, internships were beautiful. They were harrowing. Vivas were even scary. Yeah, but we all sailed through it. I am practicing for more than 5 years now, and it's all good. All amazingly beautiful.
So, Sushreeta, while you were sharing your anecdote about the upper lip incident with the patient, it made me realize that often, your patients and your clients can also take interest in your life.
Absolutely.
And trigger is the word that often is used in hospitals and other settings, that your individuality can be a trigger in that sense, your expression of self. So how are you able to, how do you manage that, in the sessions that you take now as well, there is definitely clients wanting to maybe know things about you and trying to engage in your life. So how do you manage that?
So there's a psychiatrist friend of mine who actually gave me this insight. I was like, how much sharing is too much sharing? Like, I was just like, why do people tell you that you're not supposed to share your personal stuff with the client? He was like, no, actually, personal sharing is shown to have made the therapeutic alliance even more stronger and has made therapeutic intervention a better place. I was like, huh? What are you saying? Means what I have been doing all along is not wrong? He's like, yeah, engaging in a bit of self-disclosure is not, it's not harmful at all. Then I was like, because it kind of sort of keeps you as a human as well, right? He's like, yeah. So what happens is, when you share from certain personal experiences, obviously when your sharing is relevant to what is the need of the client. So when your sharing is relevant to what is the need of the client, they are also able to realize that, hey, my therapist is also a human being at the end of the day, and they are also having to go through all of these things. And it just reiterates the whole understanding and idea that we are both at the same level. Just because I'm a psychologist, मैं तुमसे बड़ी नहीं हूँ, तुमसे ऊपर नहीं हूँ. We both are learning. We're in the process together to help you. So it just makes things a whole lot more real for them. It's not that, the whole putting the person on a pedestal wala factor goes away when you engage in relevant self-disclosure. And now what has happened is, there isn't a sense of self-disclosure because therapists are still operating from their homes. Like, online has become a thing, so it's convenient to operate from your home. So yes, people are going to get a peek into your life, and there's nothing wrong in them getting a peek into your life, because that just goes to demonstrate that you are also a human being at the end of the day, and you don't have any magical powers, but you have the knowledge and the understanding of how important it is to be human, and you are applying that in your daily practice. And I really go by the whole thing, I practice what I preach.
Wonderful, absolutely lovely. Thank you so much, Sushruta, for that. I think like maybe moving on to also talking a bit about since you mentioned doing independent therapy. So I think like now with all this accessibility to information and internet and apps, like you have Instagram, you have YouTube, you have TikTok, you have Clubhouse. There is just n number of platforms where that have allowed this creator economy to develop in that sense. And you yourself have two social media channels. You have a page on Instagram, Mercy Mental Health, and you have a YouTube channel, The Amp. Along with that, you are practicing. You are doing independent. You've gone independent now, and you are freelancing. So tell us a bit about that. Tell us about how your journey with freelancing has been.
Okay, so it's all thanks to the pandemic. Okay, call it serendipity if you may like, but the pandemic just gave me an opportunity. So what happened is, this psychiatrist friend of mine who I was telling you about, he was like, okay, I'm going to refer a client to you. I was like, okay, I'll route the client through my clinic. Then he's like, why do you have to do that? I'm referring the client to you, not your clinic. I was like, अच्छा, ऐसा भी है क्या? Okay, ठीक है, then I'll take the client directly. I'm not using the clinic's resources anyway, I'm using my resources. So I was like, oh, ये भी बात सही है. And then I realized that, oh, you can actually do that, and it's not wrong. You're not committing a crime. It's not a legally punishable offense to take on clients directly, because at the end of the day, it's you who is offering the service to that client, and it's the client who has the need, and they're coming and they're approaching you. So that is how I will forever be thankful to the psychiatrist friend of mine. His name is Dr. Amol. I will forever be thankful to him for having put in that sense in my head. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, sorry, fine, I'll do it. And so that's how I started independent practice. And obviously, I wanted to make sure that I'm as available as possible because of two reasons. One definitely being I want to help people. Two definitely being काफी पेट का सवाल है. मैंने पढ़ाई इसीलिए की है ताकि मेरी पढ़ाई से मैं कुछ तो पैसा कमा सकूं. Or I have developed certain skills, honed certain skills. Forget padhai. Padhai is a very traditional way of saying things, but given all other professions, I have honed certain skills to be able to apply them so that I'm able to earn out of it. And there is nothing wrong in wanting to earn out of a skill that you have. Again, terms and conditions apply. The reason why I say terms and conditions apply is because just because you think you are an excellent listener, that doesn't mean that you start taking therapy for people. There's a huge difference. You think you are a good listener, great. Learn, train yourself, understand how you can utilize this skill to help people. But if you really, really want to make money out of it, then make sure you have the right kind of qualifications that are required so that you don't get into any legal hassles. You don't want to fall in trouble now, don't you? So that what was I saying before this?
We were talking about social media platforms and being
yeah. So independent practice and I then actually a whole lot of people on the onset of the pandemic realized that mental health issues do exist. I was like, you're realizing that now? I'm so proud of you, you're realizing it, well done. That was my scene. And a whole lot of people were, looking out for onboarding mental health professionals on their platforms. So NGOs started doing a lot of work. Certain people started establishing online portals for access to mental health professionals. Everything of that sort started. And I was like, chalo, jahan chance milta hai, wahan make sure your name is there. Started everywhere. I was like, okay, chal, you want to collaborate with me? Fine, come, I will collaborate. We'll do something. Let's do something. Let's make it, you earn, I earn, both happy. You get to be recognized as a channel who's offering services. I get to be recognized as a person who's able to offer those services. Great. People are actually able to access mental health services at reasonable prices. Great. Win-win situation. So multiple organizations, collaborations. Now, the one key factor in multiple organizational collaborations is you need to read through their what are they called? Agreements. Good Lord. I haven't signed one after a very long time, so I've literally forgotten what they're called. You have to go through their agreements. You have to see whether there are any clauses which may not allow you to work with different other platforms similar to theirs. So therefore, it becomes very important to read through the fine print. You have to sit down and read each and every word before signing any of those contracts, because you don't want to be caught up in something that you are not prepared for. So sure, being a therapist may involve offering your services, learning a great deal about your therapy, but it also involves a great deal of watching out for yourself when you're collaborating with people, because you need to know whether this is in your best interest or not. Because obviously at the end of the day, you need to safeguard your position as well. So it's always very important to read the fine print. I still remember I was reading the fine print along with the founders, and I was like, okay, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is a problem, this is a problem, can this be changed, can that be changed? They listened and they changed things because they realized that, okay, this person means business. They're not they're not just saying things just because. This person really means business, and that kind of sort of helps them also realize that, okay, this is a very credible person, this is a very genuine person, so you better not mess with this person. And then your value automatically increases, because when you're reading the fine print and you're able to make appropriate suggestions to the people, then they're like, okay, they also get the confidence that, okay, they've gotten the right person on board. So as much as being a psychologist is all about learning, applying and understanding, You also need to understand that there could be a whole lot of psycho-legal issues as well that you need to keep in mind. So that becomes a very important place when you want to freelance and work with multiple organizations. You build a good rapport with them, be friendly enough, don't go overboard with it, and read the fine print before signing anything. Please make sure you read the fine print. Fourth, ask them thousands of questions before signing. Nobody is going to stop you from that, because you're asking them questions and also help them like, oh, okay, probably we need to revise this agreement, you know. So that becomes a very essential part, very, very important.
Yeah. So, Sushita, you said something very interesting a little earlier, and we were having this conversation with Nitin Shah. He's the CEO of IHRs, and he was talking about money and that you can go out there and make money in the field of mental health if you want to. We also had spoken to Donita. She's a criminologist and a social activist, and there again she had to say that it's difficult to make money in the profession and that you need money. And now again it almost feels like a theme in the it almost feels like as psychologists and professionals in the mental health field, you have to give an explanation that I need money. It's and almost like, I don't know if there is a guilt attached, but there is definitely having to give that explanation and say that do you have any thoughts about this? This is just a thought that occurred to me right now as we were talking.
So right now I'm just opening my Facebook because I have recently read something about therapist skills. So I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this person's name wrong. Her name is Nadine van der Linden. All right, she's a therapist. I think she's from Germany, and It's gonna take 2 minutes or something, but I really feel like I should read this.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Ever had a case of the therapist guilt? I had a big one recently. I had to cancel quite a few people because I was unwell, and the therapist guilt pattern struck me. But fortunately, thanks to the work that I have done on myself, did not stop me from taking the time off as it would have in the past. The therapist guilt turns up in lots of sneaky ways. For example, I feel guilty for turning away clients when I'm fully booked. I feel guilty that I don't want to reduce this client's fee or bulk bill. I feel guilty that I can't offer my client the times they want. I feel guilty that I'm giving so much time to my clients that my kids aren't getting the best of me. I feel guilty that my kids are sick, I'm sick, and I have to cancel my clients. I feel guilty that I'm going on parental leave. I feel guilty that I charged a missed appointment fee. I feel guilty that my circumstances aren't as bad as my clients. I feel guilty that my circumstances are worse than my clients and I'm the one helping them. I could go on. Why are therapists so guilty? Why do we feel so bad about being human, having needs, wanting to be paid adequately, wanting to work reasonable hours? Therapists tend to be very good at meeting the needs of others. We often come from the childhood backgrounds which encourage subjugation of needs, self sacrifice, and unrelenting standards. We are generally acutely aware of others' needs. We find it hard to put our needs first. I would go as far as saying most of us are terrible at doing that. Because of our schema patterns, many of us become excessively self critical and guilty whenever we even consider it. How many therapists hearing this post don't do any of the self care they recommend their clients to do? How many of us allow ourselves to self criticize regularly? How many of us don't rest properly at work when we are sick? How many of us don't schedule fun as a priority? How many of you are feeling guilty about being guilty? Your guilt is costing you your happiness and your health. Your guilt is costing you freedom in your career. Your guilt is setting you up for growing resentment and even burnout. Your guilt is a pattern that you can change. It's a pattern you deserve to change. You can be a good person and take care of your needs. You are allowed to have needs. You don't have to be a saint. There is enough self-sacrifice in spending 50 minutes listening to someone without having your needs met. That is good enough. Lose the guilt. Allow yourself to be an imperfect human. Save yourself. Protect your career. If this is challenging for you, I explored therapy. Okay, this is she does a thing known as thriving therapist formula. Yeah, that's it. So this is what she has to say. Nadine van der Linden. And when I read it, I was just like, whoa. I shared this on my Facebook and I wrote, my dear fellow therapists, we are foremost humans. This post just hit me right. Sending everyone love and care and indulging in some myself. Go team therapists, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, allied and mental health professionals, you rock. This is what I wrote. So yeah, it just basically sums up the guilt part.
Yeah, and beautifully. Just
Nadine is brilliant.
yeah.
You guys should follow her on Facebook. She is a therapist who has such insightful things to say. She has a page on Facebook. I'm so glad that my prof shared her this thing with me. I was going through a horrible time. My professor shared this with me, and I was like, okay, yes, I'm a therapist and I can hold my own space. I can hold space for others as well. I can do it. I can do it. I need to do this for myself. And yeah, you may feel guilty charging an X amount to a client, but you've got to do what you've got to do. And about the money making bit, the problem here is that people are not still all that open about mental health issues. They still do not see them as important as physical health issues. So what happens is, if they are told that you have to spend an hour just talking to a person, and you have to spend money for that, and you have to spend like, let's say $1,000 for that, they'd be like, huh? दोस्त के साथ बैठ के बात कर लेंगे क्या उसमें? For an example. So what happens is there is not a whole lot of understanding as to what actually happens in therapy, like how each therapy session is literally tailor-made to the client. No two therapy sessions are same. They may be similar, but they're not essentially the same. So there is just a whole lot of blood, sweat, tears, strength, determination, grit, missing meals, so on and so forth, that we as therapists go through in order to be able to be available for our clients. And after having done all of that, we still feel guilty for charging them a fee. That's a sad little thing about being in a helping profession, wanting to help people and charging for helping people. That it kind of sort of doesn't. It's like, I want to help someone, but I'm going to have to charge them money for it. So that's where the whole guilt aspect also may set in. But however, at the end of the day, you are a professional, you are a psychologist, you are a therapist, you are a counselor, and you are doing your job. You are choosing to help someone, to hold a space for someone who's going through their own demons. And hey, even soldiers are helping protect their kingdoms, and they do get paid. So you are also soldiering on for your clients, holding a space for them so that they can fight whatever battles that they need to fight. So it's okay for you to charge an X amount. As long as it's reasonable. You will, like, it takes a little bit of time to figure out the right price point for yourself, that what works. A whole lot of therapists do sliding scales. A whole lot of therapists do case-to-case basis, they changing of their fees and so on and so forth. There's always, that option is always available. There are also people who are holding space for offering certain free sessions as well. So the services are right there. It's just that the awareness is not there. And for therapists, we need to work a little bit on our guilt. Oh, there is so much more to being a therapist than what is seen. There is so much more. There's a lot more. And I wish I could, actually sit down and do this. So this was actually something that I had in my mind 1 or 2 years back, wherein I wanted to do a sort of psychology. You can just come, sit down, and ask me all the hard-hitting questions about what it is like to practice, and I can answer them in a very simplified manner.
So, very powerful words there, Sushreeta. Thank you so much. I guess, maybe one last question before we open up to the audience. Um, so, I was just wondering if you have any word of advice for all the young therapists who are just entering into the field, contemplating whether they should take up a job, whether they should work with an organization, or if they should go independent. Anything that you have to say to them?
So all I can do is I can share my personal understanding of this. Again, it may differ from person to person, but this is what my experiences taught me, and what I went into as well. So what I had decided after my masters was that I need to do an internship. My master's internship is there, but I was like, no, थोड़ी सी अलग internship चाहिए. Fortunately, I was able to land an internship with Dr. Harish Shetty, who's a senior psychiatrist here, and I got to work with him for a solid 6 months as an intern. Um, saw a whole lot of cases, different kinds of things. Was able to realize and understand how I'm able to assess and diagnose if a person actually has a problem or not, and so on and so forth. That internship actually gave me a lot, because it was not just sitting down with patients. It was also about attending a whole lot of workshops with Sir. He would conduct and deliver workshops all over the city, sometimes out of the city as well. Obviously, I was within city limits. He would have to fund my travel otherwise, but within city limits, whatever, wherever he could possibly take me to attend all of these workshops, he has. I have gone with him diligently, and I've gotten to learn so many more things than what I would have learned in my master's program. I got to learn a whole lot more, and I was so glad that I took that decision of doing an additional internship apart from what is offered in the masters. So even before you jump onto your masters, after you've done your bachelor's, if you can get an internship or an observership opportunity, please grab it, because internships and observerships are going to help you understand whether or not this is actually meant for you, whether or not you are ready to face whatever the field may have to offer to you. Because it's only on the basis of experiencing these things will you actually realize where your potential lies. And just because you don't okay, after an internship you feel that nahi ye mere se nahi hoga, that doesn't mean anything bad. It just means like, okay, great, you've realized that this doesn't work for you, so you can look for better pastures that suit your needs. So that's great, that's brilliant. What I did was I insisted on doing an internship, and I wanted to do a job because I was like, kahin to supervision chahiye. Starting mein kahin to supervision chahiye, because you're getting into the field. I don't want to be like, shit, I made a mistake and I don't know who to go to rectify this mistake. So I was glad that initially I did a job wherein I had like regular meetings with patients. I was able to see, because we are too involved and stuff like that. So all of that, really helps in your initial years, and that gives you the confidence that yes, you can do a whole bunch of things by yourselves. You may have to encounter a whole lot of battles also while you're at it. You may find that you have to be to yourself too much too often, but these spaces are very important spaces, because they're going to teach you a whole bunch of things, and that's just brilliant, that's just amazing. So I personally was very grateful that I got an opportunity to work with him for 3.5-ish years. And then I realized that, okay, jobs are not meant for me. I need to freelance because that suits my needs better. Okay, so that is how I realized that, all right, fine. It's not that I haven't experienced it. I've experienced it, and because I've experienced it, I can tell you that it's not for everyone. This is the same thing that I tell clients in the beginning of any first session with them, that hey, I'm your therapist now, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be your therapist forever, because you and I, if we do not suit each other's needs, then there's no point in continuing this therapeutic alliance. You are better off looking for another therapist rather than continuing with me just because you feel that, oh, I've told this person everything, so might as well stick to this person. I make this clear in the very first session, and like I said, I practice what I preach. So I apply the same thing on myself. If I see that something's not fitting somewhere, I do not feel comfortable in some place, so that I'm able to navigate through this entire situation for myself. And eventually, when you realize what works best for you, you will end up doing it. As long as you allow yourself chances, opportunities, allow yourself perspectives, allow yourself possibilities, you will eventually learn, realize that what is it that.
Absolutely lovely, Sushita. I think wonderful takeaways from that as well. Okay, so let's also open the conversation to our participants. Now, if anyone has any questions for Sushita, we are here.
I have a question. Um, Thank you so much for this session, Sushita. पता है मैं अभी मास्टर्स कर मास्टर्स में क्या करूँ और फिर मास्टर्स के बाद मैं क्या करूँ, मतलब आई एम नॉट एबल टू डू एनीथिंग फॉर दैट, मतलब इट्स मतलब ऐसा कैसे हम बन करते हैं.
Okay. So the thing is, India में कोई ऐसा straightforward process नहीं है, but to simplify things, bachelor's, master's essential है to call yourself a psychologist. ठीक है. अब उसके बाद और क्या किया जा सकता है? So आपके masters के बाद दो clear directions मिलते हैं आपको. एक है टेस्टिंग असेसमेंट, दूसरा है थेरेपी. यू कैन डू बोथ. सो इफ लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल मास्टर्स के बाद यू फील दैट नहीं मुझे टेस्टिंग और असेसमेंट करना है, देन अकॉर्डिंगली यू कैन गेट योरसेल्फ ट्रेन. देयर आर a whole lot of institutions that offer training specific to certain psychometric tests and assessments. You can go and undertake training उन लोगों के साथ, and they will precisely explain to you in a great more detail कि आपको टेस्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन कैसे करना है, रिजल्ट्स के इंटरप्रिटेशंस कैसे होंगे, फिर आप क्लाइंट को कैसे एक्सप्लेन करते हो, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. दैट इज इफ यू फील दैट नहीं मुझे सिर्फ और सिर्फ टेस्टिंग और असेसमेंट ही करना है. एंड दैट इज ऑल्सो अ थिंग. देयर आर क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजिस्ट हु डू जस्ट टेस्टिंग एंड असेसमेंट. Then comes therapy. Therapy is, it gives you a whole lot more of an opportunity because you're actually getting to sit down and get to know a person. So if therapy, if you want to just go therapy के हिसाब से, then CBT है, REBT है, EMDR है जिनकी trainings है, EQ की trainings होती है. All of these are some of the many options which you can end up doing. This is what I'm talking about. Masters के just बाद ये सारे options है. So you basically are getting proper training in what you choose to do further. Alright, that is one thing. अब इंडिया में बहुत सारे issues है with regards to licensing procedure and protocol for psychologists. So if you have done clinical in your masters and you want to call yourself a clinical psychologist, next best route होगा कि आप MPhil करो in clinical. ठीक है. MPhil के बाद आप PhD भी कर सकते हो. That is completely up to you. But traditionally अगर देखा जाए, to secure yourself on the basis of your qualifications, आप अगर MPhil कर लेते हो, then you can call yourself a clinical psychologist अगर आप clinical में करते हो. And what does that give you? That gives you a license to freely do testing, assessment, diagnostics and therapy. तो कोई आपको क्वेश्चन भी नहीं करेगा, because you have that degree which says that okay, I am an MPhil in clinical, and usually India में फिलहाल तो जितने भी MPhil clinical courses है वो सारे RCI से affiliated है as far as my memory serves me right, और RCI का फिर आप लाइसेंस के लिए अप्लाई कर सकते हैं, आपको RCI का लाइसेंस मिल जाता है. ओके, however अभी RCI के साथ it's a little tricky because classification के issues हो रहे हैं. So now the government has come up with this central and state registers, wherein after you've completed your masters you can register on those registers, central and state. It's still in process, वो अभी भी चल रहा है. Once they actually start taking registrations after you have gotten your masters in clinical counseling जो भी है, आप फिर उस रजिस्टर में खुद का नाम register कर सकते हो, then you will be recognized as a psychologist by the government also. Your degree recognizes you as a psychologist. There's no denying that. आपने masters की है psychology में, मतलब आप psychologist हो. It recognizes, but this is आगे क्या is kind of sort of like this. A masters is enough. Don't worry about that. A masters is enough because उतना specialization knowledge देता है. And in order to enhance the knowledge that you have received from your masters, it's always good to try and take up different kinds of trainings, attend conferences, attend workshops, go for specific therapy trainings, go for specific kinds of testing trainings, and so on and so forth. Because usse kya hoga, you'll constantly be updated with whatever is the latest trend going on, and एक तरीके से आपका revision भी होता रहेगा. If it's the same process that you're going to have to engage in over and over again, आपका एक हद तक revision भी हो जाएगा and doing all of that. Samriddhi, I hope that answers your question.
यस मतलब हम मास्टर्स करते हैं और फिर हम उसके बाद ट्रेनिंग लेते हैं. मुझे ना समझ नहीं आता है ये कि लोग प्रैक्टिस कैसे करने लगते हैं. मुझे ये इट्स अ लिटिल फनी, बट मुझे समझ नहीं आता था कि ना प्रैक्टिस कैसे हो रहा है. बट आई थिंक मेक सेंस नाउ. थैंक यू.
Do we have any other questions?
We don't have any questions as such, but it was absolutely lovely having you, Sushreeta. So much energy and enthusiasm that you've got and been able to share with us, such a personal sense of story was there as well, and you were being so vulnerable and open about all these things that you have personally went through. And it's not just the and that's what we love here in the community talk as well, that anyone who's joining in, they have been able to open up and really talk about their journey, and not just in a oh yes, do this and like then give some gyan or philosophy on top, but some structure in terms of your individual struggle as well, and doing so well in spite of all those struggles can be a really good insight for a lot of the young people who may watch this. So thank you so much for being part of this and giving us such a great insight into your life. So wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Sachin.
Other than that, Aisha, I'll leave it up to you.
Sure, yeah. I think thank you so much, Sushreeta, for being here and for sharing your experiences. Afshin?
Hello everyone.
Hi.
After listening you, I also got a lot of confidence and encouragement. मैं खुद साइकोलॉजी की स्टूडेंट हूँ, लेकिन मैं भी इस चीज़ के बारे में सोचती थी कि आप इंडिविजुअल प्रैक्टिस कर सकते हैं या नहीं कर सकते, या ये पॉसिबल है या नहीं है. तो मुझे बहुत सा एक्सपोजर मिला आपके पूरे एक्सपीरियंस या आपके स्ट्रगल से. थैंक्स अ लॉट for sharing your experience.
Most welcome, Afshin. I'm so glad कि इससे आपको कुछ इंसाइट मिला और शायद आपके थोड़े से जो apprehensions या डर है वो कहीं ना कहीं sort हुए हो.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Afshin.